The birthday cake sat untouched on the plastic table, while my sister Veronica's voice sliced through the backyard chatter like a blade. "Noah isn't Brett's son, he's Connor's." My dead husband's name hung in the air. Connor, who I'd buried just 10 days ago after a brain aneurysm stole him at 36. The guests at my nephew's first birthday party went silent. I felt 40 pairs of eyes drilling into me, waiting for me to shatter. Veronica pulled a folded document from her designer purse. Designer, when she'd been crying poverty for months. Connor knew the truth. Before he died, he updated his will. Half of Eliana's house goes to Noah. His biological son deserves it. $800,000. She wanted $400,000 of my Seattle Victorian, the home Connor and I had renovated together, board by board. The home where I still couldn't sleep on his side of the bed. My parents sat frozen at the picnic table. My father half rose from his seat, confusion etched across his face. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. And me? I pressed my lips together, fighting the most inappropriate urge to laugh. Before we go further, if family betrayal hits different for you, hit that like button and subscribe to Formidable Revenge channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, because this story takes a turn nobody saw coming. Trust me, you'll want to see how I handled what happened next. Veronica strutted across the lawn in her new dress, her highlighted hair catching the afternoon sun. She'd barely shown up to Connor's funeral, claimed Noah was sick, but here she was, glowing with confidence, presenting this bomb to our entire family. "Eliana?" My mother's voice trembled. "Say something." I took the will from Veronica's outstretched hand, scanned it. The formal language was wrong, nothing like the legal documents Connor brought home from the firm. The signature, while close, had tells. The loop on the C too wide. The final stroke too aggressive. "This is Noah's birthday," I said calmly, handing back the paper. "We should let him enjoy his party. We can discuss this privately later." Veronica's triumphant expression flickered. "That's it? You're not going to—" "Not today, Veronica." I grabbed my purse, kissed my shell-shocked parents goodbye, and walked to my Tesla with my spine straight and my hands steady. The moment I clicked my seatbelt, the laugh I'd been suppressing burst out. Not joy, something darker. Because Veronica had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She didn't know about the vasectomy. My name is Eliana Chen Morrison, and at 34, widowhood wasn't supposed to be part of my story. Neither was my sister's betrayal, but that's where I found myself. Driving away from a birthday party where my husband's reputation had just been cremated alongside his body. Connor and I met 13 years ago at a cancer research gala in Seattle. I was coordinating the silent auction when he outbid everyone for a watercolor painting of the Space Needle at sunset, the one I'd been admiring all evening. He walked straight to me afterward, handed it over with those warm brown eyes crinkling at the corners. "Seemed like this belonged with you," he'd said. That was Connor, observant, generous. The kind of man who remembered baristas' names and asked about their grad school applications. He was a corporate attorney at Preston & Associates, brilliant but never arrogant. We married 8 months later on a ferry crossing Puget Sound, the city skyline mirroring that painting that brought us together. We bought our Queen Anne Victorian 2 years after the wedding. $800,000, a stretch, but Connor had just made partner, and my interior design firm was gaining traction. The house needed work, but it had original hardwood floors, a turret room, and a garden where I imagined future children playing tag among the hydrangeas. Those children never came. 5 years of trying, ovulation kits, fertility specialists, temperature charts that turned sex into a clinical procedure. 4 rounds of IVF that drained $60,000 from our savings and left us emotionally bankrupt. The 4th failure broke something in us. I remember the drive home from the clinic, Connor's hand gripping mine across the console, neither of us speaking because there were no words left. "We can build a beautiful life anyway," Connor said that night on our porch swing. "You and me, that's enough." He meant it. We traveled, Santorini, Tokyo, the Amalfi Coast. We poured ourselves into careers. I launched Chen Interiors. Connor took on pro bono cases for immigrant families. We renovated the house until it gleamed in design magazines. Our life was full. My sister Veronica was always in the background, 4 years younger and perpetually chaotic. While I built a business, she bounced between jobs: barista, retail clerk, failed Instagram influencer. Our parents constantly bailed her out, making excuses for her impulsive decisions and mounting credit card debt. Veronica was beautiful, the kind of effortless beauty that made people orbit her. But beneath the charm ran a current of competition that exhausted me. When I dated Connor, she suddenly wanted to date lawyers. When we bought our house, she complained about her apartment until our parents helped with rent. "She's your only sister," Connor would remind me when I grew frustrated. "Family matters." 2 years ago, Veronica announced her pregnancy at Thanksgiving. A shock, since she'd always mocked my desire for children as conformist breeding propaganda. But there she was, tears streaming, talking about the miracle of life with her boyfriend Brett, a motorcycle mechanic with a criminal record our parents pretended not to know about. I felt the knife twist of jealousy. After everything Connor and I had endured, Veronica accidentally achieved what we desperately wanted. But I swallowed the bitterness. I was determined to be the best aunt possible. Noah was born healthy, 8 pounds, 6 ounces. I showed up at Swedish Medical Center with flowers and a hand-knitted blanket. Veronica seemed overwhelmed from day one, calling me in tears about colic, sleepless nights, postpartum anxiety. I helped however I could, taking Noah overnight sometimes so she could rest. Connor maintained distance from the baby. At the time, I thought our infertility struggles made bonding painful for him. He was kind when Veronica visited, but he never offered to hold Noah, never cooed over baby milestones. Then came that Tuesday morning. Connor complained of a headache before work. I suggested he stay home, but he had a major client meeting. "Just a migraine," he insisted, kissing me goodbye. "I'll call after." He never called. The hospital called instead. By the time I arrived, he was gone. Brain aneurysm, instantaneous. He was 36 years old. Veronica was strangely absent during the funeral preparations. Text messages claiming Noah was sick. The day of the service, she appeared briefly, stayed in the back, left before the reception. I was too numb to question it. 1 week later came Noah's first birthday party, the last place I wanted to be. But my mother insisted Connor would have wanted me there, and I dragged myself across town with a wrapped toy and circles under my eyes that no concealer could hide. The moment I walked into Veronica's rental house, something felt wrong. Her friend Jenna opened the door with wide eyes and a strained voice. Guests whispered in clusters, conversations stopping when I passed. Then Veronica made her announcement, and I realized my sister had been planning this betrayal while I was still selecting Connor's casket. What Veronica didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was the real history between her and Connor. 3 years ago, we invited her for dinner to celebrate her new marketing job. Connor made his signature cedar plank salmon. We opened good wine. The evening was pleasant until I excused myself for a work call, a client having a meltdown about pendant lighting. The call stretched to 20 minutes. When I returned to the dining room, the atmosphere had shifted. Connor looked uncomfortable, shoulders tense. Veronica sat inches closer to him than before, her hand resting on his forearm, laughing at something I hadn't heard. I thought nothing of it. Veronica was always affectionate. The wine was flowing. But that night, as we got ready for bed, Connor looked troubled. "I need to tell you something," he said, sitting on the edge of our bed. "I don't want secrets between us, and I don't want this to damage your relationship with your sister." While I'd been on the phone, Veronica had made a pass at him. Not subtle flirting, actual advances. Comments about how I didn't appreciate him enough. Suggestions that he deserved someone who understood him better. When Connor rebuffed her, she laughed it off as a joke, called him uptight. I was hurt, but not entirely surprised. Veronica had always pushed boundaries. We decided to treat it as an isolated incident. Too much wine, her usual competitive instincts. But it wasn't isolated. Over the next months, Veronica found excuses to touch Connor when I wasn't looking. Sent text messages that walked the line between friendly and inappropriate. Once, she showed up at his office unannounced, asking him to lunch. Each time, Connor maintained firm boundaries. Each time, he told me immediately after. Finally, we confronted my parents. That conversation was a disaster. They suggested Connor was misreading sisterly affection. My mother even implied, with good intentions but terrible judgment, that perhaps Connor was flattered by the attention and exaggerating the situation. That night, Connor and I made a decision. We'd create distance without causing a family explosion. We declined invitations that included Veronica. Made sure we were never alone with her. Connor blocked her number after a particularly suggestive midnight text. Then came the medical issue that changed everything. Connor had been experiencing pain for weeks before seeing a urologist. The diagnosis, varicocele, enlarged veins in the scrotum requiring surgery. The procedure went well, but there was a complication. The doctor recommended a vasectomy during the same operation, due to the extensive damage and potential for recurrence. It was agonizing to decide, especially after our fertility struggles. But we agreed it was right for Connor's health. The vasectomy was performed 2 years before Noah was conceived. We kept this private. After years of invasive questions about why we didn't have children, we'd learned to guard our reproductive privacy. Only Connor, me, and his doctors knew. During recovery, Connor sat in our garden with an ice pack, making a prediction that seemed paranoid. "Veronica isn't done," he said. "I have a feeling she'll try something bigger eventually." I laughed it off. But Connor was serious. The next week, he scheduled an appointment with Raymond Foster, our family attorney. I went along, watching as Connor detailed Veronica's behavior and his recent medical procedure. Raymond recommended documentation. Everything. The unwanted advances. Medical records confirming the vasectomy. Text messages. Emails. "You never know what might become relevant," Raymond advised. "Better to have documentation and never need it than wish you had it later." We followed his advice meticulously. Created a file of everything related to Veronica. Connor updated his will properly, through official channels with witnesses, leaving everything to me. Raymond kept copies. We locked the originals in a safety deposit box at Seattle First National. "Just in case," Connor said as we secured the box. "Though I plan to be around dealing with Veronica's drama for at least another 50 years. He got 11 months. The morning after Noah's birthday party, I drove straight to Seattle First National. The branch manager, Patricia, who'd known Connor and me for years, expressed condolences as she led me to the vault. I sat alone in the small viewing room and opened the box Connor and I had filled with what he jokingly called our disaster kit. Inside lay exactly what I needed. Connor's legitimate will, notarized, properly executed, leaving everything to me. Medical records detailing his vasectomy 2 years before Noah's conception, making it biologically impossible for him to father a child. A journal documenting every inappropriate interaction with Veronica. Dates, times, exact quotes, printed copies of her text messages, a letter from Raymond confirming he'd witnessed Connor's legitimate will. And at the bottom, a sealed envelope with my name in Connor's familiar handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. "My dearest Eliana, if you're reading this, something has happened to me, and you've needed these documents. I hope it's many years from now when we're old and gray, and Veronica's antics are distant memories we laugh about. But if not, if the worst has happened and she's tried to hurt you in my absence, know that I tried to prepare for every possibility. Use these documents to protect yourself. I know how much you value family, how loyal you are, but you deserve protection from those who would exploit that beautiful heart. I love you beyond words, beyond time. Whatever happens, know that." Connor tears streamed down my face as I read, feeling his love reaching across death itself. My practical, thoughtful husband had anticipated this. Not the specific scenario, perhaps, but the possibility that Veronica might weaponize his death. I carefully returned everything to the box except what I needed: copies of medical records, the legitimate will, selected journal entries. Then I called Raymond Foster. "You still with me? Because this is where things get really interesting. If you're invested in seeing how I dismantled my sister's lies, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me what you'd do in my situation. Subscribe to Formidable Revenge channel for more stories about people who thought they could get away with betrayal." Raymond's office occupied a converted brownstone in downtown Seattle, the kind of place that whispered old money and discretion. His receptionist recognized me immediately, sympathy softening her features. "Mrs. Morrison?" she said, standing. "Mr. Foster is expecting you. Please accept my deepest condolences." Raymond was in his early 60s, silver-haired with reading glasses perched on his nose. He'd been Connor's mentor at the firm, and they'd maintained close friendship even after Connor moved to a different practice. He embraced me briefly when I entered. "Eliana, I was devastated about Connor. He was one of the finest attorneys I've ever known." "He was," I agreed, my voice catching. "And it seems he was right about preparing for the worst with my sister." I explained the birthday party ambush, showed him the forged will Veronica had presented. Raymond examined it, his expression darkening. "This is amateur forgery," he said finally. "The language is wrong. The signature wouldn't survive expert analysis. But the fact that she created this at all is deeply concerning." I showed him everything from the safety deposit box, medical records, legitimate will, Connor's journal. "Connor was nothing if not thorough," Raymond said, reviewing the materials. "These medical records alone disprove her claim. The vasectomy was 2 years before the child's conception. Biologically impossible for Connor to be the father." "What should I do?" I asked. "I don't want to humiliate her publicly, but I can't let her steal half my home based on a lie." Raymond leaned back, considering. "First, we need more information. I recommend a private investigator to examine Veronica's current situation. There's likely motivation beyond simple cruelty. People rarely attempt fraud without financial pressure." He recommended Dale Morrison, a former police detective who now worked as a private investigator for the firm. Raymond called immediately, and Dale arrived within an hour, a stocky man in his 50s with a no-nonsense demeanor. He took detailed notes as I explained everything, asking pointed questions about Veronica's relationship history, employment, financial status. I realized how little I actually knew about my sister's current life. We'd grown distant since Noah's birth, my attempts to be involved as an aunt often rebuffed or taken for granted. "I'll need a few days," Dale said when I finished. "I'll focus on her financial situation and relationship with the child's actual father. What can you tell me about him?" I shared what little I knew about Brett, the mechanic Veronica had been dating when she got pregnant. Tattooed, rode a motorcycle, seemed uninterested in family gatherings. "He wasn't at the party yesterday?" I noted. Strange for the father not to attend his son's first birthday. Dale nodded, making another note. "That's a solid starting point. I'll be in touch soon." 3 days later, Dale called requesting a meeting at Raymond's office. When I arrived, both men were reviewing documents spread across the conference table. "Mrs. Morrison?" Dale began once we were seated. "I've uncovered some concerning information about your sister." According to his investigation, Veronica was drowning in debt. Over $80,000 spread across credit cards, personal loans, and medical bills for Noah, who'd needed surgery for a heart defect shortly after birth. Her credit score had cratered. She'd been rejected for 3 additional loans in the past month. "She's also facing eviction," Dale continued, sliding a document toward me. "This is a copy of the notice her landlord filed. She has until month's end to pay 4 months of back rent or vacate." As for Brett, he'd abandoned Veronica and Noah shortly after the birth, moved to Portland with a new girlfriend. He was paying minimal child support, barely $200 monthly, and irregularly. "I also found these," Dale said, producing printed text messages. "She's been telling friends about her plans for weeks." The messages were between Veronica and her friend Jenna. I recognized the name. the woman who'd opened the door at the party. Connor's death is terrible, but maybe it's my chance to get what I deserve. That house is worth $800K now. If I play this right, I'll have a nest egg for Noah and me. The will is almost ready. My friend Travis is good with Photoshop and found Connor's signature online from some charity auction. Looks totally legit. Eliana has always been the golden child. Time for me to get my share. She got 11 years with a great guy. Least she can do is share the wealth now that he's gone. I felt physically ill reading the calculated coldness. This wasn't opportunism. It was premeditated fraud designed to capitalize on my grief. There's more, Dale said gently. I ran a background check on Brett Hamilton. History of domestic violence from a previous relationship. Currently has a warrant for unpaid child support for another child in Oregon. Not someone you want around your nephew. I sat in stunned silence. My sister wasn't just desperate. She was willing to destroy Connor's reputation to solve her financial problems, and her choice in partners had endangered Noah. What do I do with all this? I asked, looking between Raymond and Dale. I can't expose this publicly. Noah is innocent. He's still my nephew. Raymond removed his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. You have several options. We could file criminal charges for attempted fraud and forgery. Given the amount involved, she'd likely face serious penalties, possibly jail time. He paused, seeing my distress. Or we could handle this privately. Confront her with evidence, require her to retract her claims, potentially work out an arrangement that protects both you and the child. I left the meeting with a heavy heart and a folder full of evidence. That evening, I called my therapist, Dr. Helen Crawford, whom I'd been seeing since Connor's death. In her calm office, I unloaded everything. I'm so angry I can barely see straight, I admitted. But Noah is just a baby. None of this is his fault. And despite everything, Veronica is still my sister. Dr. Crawford listened attentively, asking occasional questions about my relationship with Veronica throughout our lives. This pattern of competition and manipulation has existed since childhood, she observed. The current situation is an escalation, not an anomaly. What would you do? I asked desperately. I can't tell you what decision to make, she replied. But compassion doesn't mean allowing yourself to be victimized. You can be kind while still establishing firm boundaries and consequences. After much reflection, I decided on my course of action. I would confront Veronica privately with all the evidence, offering her a choice: face potential legal consequences, or accept a compromise that would provide for Noah while requiring accountability. With renewed determination, I called Veronica the next morning. We need to talk about the will, I said when she answered. Come to my house tomorrow afternoon. Just you. No Noah. I knew you'd come around, she replied, smugness dripping from her voice. I'll be there at 2. I spent the morning preparing for Veronica's visit, arranging documents in logical order, setting up recording devices per Raymond's advice. Washington is a 2-party consent state, he'd warned. You can't record secretly, but you can ask permission at the start, framing it as ensuring you both have a record of any agreement. At precisely 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath before opening the door. Veronica stood on the porch, looking polished in a new outfit, confidence evident in her posture. Where had money for new clothes come from when she couldn't pay rent? Come in, I said, leading her to the living room where I'd set up 2 chairs facing each other, a coffee table between them with a recorder, water glasses, and a folder of documents. I hope you don't mind if we record this. Given the legal nature of what we're discussing, it seems prudent. Veronica hesitated briefly before nodding. Sure, whatever makes you comfortable. Though I think this can be pretty straightforward. I turned on the recorder, stating the date and time, confirming Veronica's consent. Then I sat back, studying my sister's face. Before we discuss the will, I'd like to understand exactly what you're claiming happened between you and Connor. Veronica launched into a rehearsed story. According to her version, she and Connor had connected 2 years ago during a period when he and I were having problems. We weren't. She claimed they met several times at the Fairmont Olympic downtown, that Connor had confessed unhappiness in our marriage, that Noah was conceived during these encounters. "He always meant to tell you," she said, eyes wide with practiced sincerity. "But then Noah was born with the heart condition, and he didn't want to add stress. He promised he'd provide for his son, though." I listened without interrupting, noting inconsistencies in her timeline, details that contradicted what I knew about Connor's schedule during that period. When she finished, I began asking questions. "Which hotel did you meet at?" "The Fairmont Olympic," she replied quickly. "What room number?" she faltered. "It was on a high floor. I don't recall the exact number." "What days of the week did you usually meet?" "Tuesdays, sometimes Thursdays, when he told you he was working late." I continued with increasingly specific questions. What did Connor typically order from room service? What side of the bed did he prefer? Did he shower before or after? Details only someone who'd actually been intimate with Connor would know. Veronica grew increasingly flustered, her answers vague or contradictory. "Why does any of this matter?" she finally snapped. "The point is that Noah is Connor's son, and the will proves Connor wanted to provide for him." "Actually," I said calmly, opening my folder, "both those claims are demonstrably false." I placed the medical records on the table between us. 2 years before Noah was conceived, Connor had a vasectomy following surgery for varicocele. It was completely successful, confirmed by follow-up tests. It was physically impossible for him to father a child after that procedure. Veronica's face drained of color. She picked up the medical records with trembling hands, scanning the clinical language and dates. "These could be faked," she said weakly. "They're not," I replied. "And Connor's doctor is prepared to testify to their authenticity if necessary. But that's just the beginning." Next, I produced the legitimate will, notarized, properly filed with the court. This is Connor's actual will, prepared by Raymond Foster and witnessed by 2 partners at his firm. As you can see, it leaves everything to me. No mention of Noah. Veronica's confidence was visibly crumbling, but she attempted to rally. "He must have changed it after this. The will I have is more recent." "The will you have," I said evenly, "is a forgery, a poor one. Raymond has already identified multiple legal inconsistencies, and the signature is clearly fake. Creating a fraudulent will is a felony in Washington, punishable by up to 5 years in prison." I continued methodically presenting evidence. Connor's journal documenting her inappropriate advances. Text messages between her and Jenna discussing the plan. Finally, Dale's report detailing her financial troubles, eviction notice, and Brett's abandonment. "We know everything, Veronica," I said as she sat in stunned silence. "The question now is what happens next." For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then, to my surprise, she began to cry. Not theatrical tears, deep, body-racking sobs. "I didn't know what else to do," she finally said between gasps. "I'm going to be homeless. Noah and I will be on the street in 2 weeks. Brett left us with nothing. The medical bills keep coming. I thought if I could just get some money from the house." "So you decided to destroy Connor's reputation?" I asked, my voice hardening. "To tell everyone he cheated on me? To forge legal documents?" "I was desperate," she shouted, her sadness turning to anger. "You have everything. This big house, a successful business, everyone's respect. What do I have? A baby with a heart condition, 80,000 in debt, and an eviction notice. You try making good decisions in that situation." Her outburst hung in the air. The raw honesty of it, stripped of manipulation and lies, reached something in me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps understanding. "Noah is Brett's son, isn't he?" I asked more gently. She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Yes. Connor never touched me. Not like that. I tried with him years ago. He always shut me down immediately." "He was annoyingly loyal to you." "And the will?" "My friend Travis helped me. He does graphic design and thought it would be easy to fake a signature. I was going to use it to pressure you into giving me money." I never thought you'd investigate so thoroughly. I turned off the recorder and sat back, considering my next move. Veronica watched me nervously, clearly expecting the worst. I could press charges, I said finally. What you did was illegal, not to mention cruel and calculated. She nodded miserably. I know. But that would hurt Noah, I continued. And despite everything, he's my nephew. I love him. I leaned forward, making sure she was looking directly at me. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell everyone the truth, that you lied about the affair, that Noah isn't Connor's son, that you forged the will. You'll apologize publicly to me and to Connor's memory. And then what? She asked, her voice small. We'll still be evicted. I'm not finished, I said. In exchange for your full confession and a legal agreement never to attempt anything like this again, I'll help you and Noah. Not by giving you half my house, but by setting up a trust fund for Noah's education and medical needs, and helping you find stable housing. Her eyes widened. Why would you do that after what I did? Not for you, I said honestly. For Noah. And because Connor would want me to help his nephew, even if that nephew's mother tried to destroy his reputation. I outlined the conditions. Therapy and financial counseling. Steady employment, allowing me to be part of Noah's life to ensure proper care. If she violated any conditions, the support stopped immediately. Veronica was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. I don't deserve your help, she finally said. No, I agreed. You don't. But Noah deserves a stable home and medical care, and I deserve to have my husband's memory untarnished. This solution gives us both what we need. After discussing details, Veronica agreed to my terms. We'd meet with Raymond the next day to formalize the agreement, and she'd make her public confession at a family dinner the following weekend. As I showed her out, she paused at the door. I really am sorry, Eliana. I've been jealous of you my whole life. Everything always seemed to come so easily to you. Nothing about my life has been easy, I replied. You just never bothered to look past the surface. Maybe it's time you started. The family dinner I arranged for Saturday evening was tense from the start. My parents arrived early, my mother bringing her famous pot roast as a peace offering. I don't know what this is about, she said, setting the dish on my counter. But Veronica has been calling us in tears, saying you're forcing her to some sort of family meeting. Just wait until everyone's here, I replied, pouring her wine. This needs to be addressed once, with everyone present. By 7 o'clock, we were all seated around my dining room table. My parents, Veronica without Noah, who was with a sitter, and me. Per Raymond's advice, a small recorder sat in the center of the table. Thank you all for coming, I began after explaining the recording. I've asked Veronica to share some important information with you. My sister looked pale and uncomfortable, her usual confidence nowhere to be seen. She stared down at her plate as she spoke. I lied about Noah being Connor's son, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Connor and I never had an affair. Noah is Brett's child, and I forged the will I showed at the birthday party. My parents stared at her in shock. But why would you do such a thing? My father demanded. Do you have any idea what that claim did to your sister? To Connor's reputation? Veronica explained her desperate financial situation, her voice gaining strength as she detailed mounting debts, Brett's abandonment, the eviction notice. As she spoke, I watched my mother's expression shift from shock to sympathy. Oh, honey, she said when Veronica finished. Why didn't you just come to us for help? You didn't need to make up such terrible lies. Would you have given me $400,000? Veronica asked bluntly. Because that's what I would have gotten if my plan worked. Half the value of Eliana's house. Of course we couldn't give you that kind of money, my father said. But we could have helped with rent, at least temporarily. Instead, you chose to try to defraud your own sister while she was grieving her husband. I know it was wrong, Veronica admitted. Eliana has already made that abundantly clear. She has evidence to press charges if she wanted to. My mother turned to me in alarm. You wouldn't do that to your own sister, would you? I felt a flash of frustration at her immediate defense of Veronica, even now. I could, I said firmly. What she did wasn't just immoral, it was illegal. Forgery and fraud are felonies. But she's family, my mother insisted, and she has Noah to think about. I'm family too, I replied, my voice rising. Your daughter too, the one who just lost her husband and then had to defend his memory against false accusations of infidelity? Where was your concern for me in all this? My father looked uncomfortable, shifting in his seat. Of course we care about you, Eliana, but Veronica has always needed more help, more guidance. And whose fault is that? I asked. You've been bailing her out her entire life. Maybe if you'd let her face consequences occasionally, she wouldn't have escalated to criminal behavior. My mother gasped. That's hardly fair. Veronica, surprisingly, shook her head. No, Mom, Eliana's right. You always made excuses for me, always found ways to fix my mistakes. It didn't help me. It just made me think I could do whatever I wanted without consequences. My parents looked stunned at this admission. So what happens now? My father asked, looking between us. Is Veronica going to jail? No, I said. I've decided not to press charges under certain conditions. I outlined the agreement. Trust fund for Noah, therapy requirements, stable employment condition. That's very generous, my father said, looking relieved. Especially after what she did. It's more than generous, Veronica agreed quietly. More than I deserve. Well, my mother said, brightening. This is all working out then. Veronica has apologized, Eliana is helping with Noah, and we can put this ugly business behind us. It's not that simple, Mom, I said firmly. Trust has been broken. Healing will take time, if it happens at all, and there need to be boundaries going forward. What kind of boundaries? She asked, looking worried. For one, you both need to stop enabling Veronica's behavior. No more bailouts, no more excuses. She needs to stand on her own feet. My father nodded slowly. That seems reasonable. And you need to respect that my relationship with Veronica will be different now. I'll be involved in Noah's life because I love him. But Veronica and I won't be close, at least not for a long time. My mother looked distressed. But we're family. We need to stick together. Being family doesn't mean tolerating abuse, Mom, I said gently. What Veronica did was abusive. She tried to use my grief to manipulate me. That has consequences, even within a family. The remainder of dinner was subdued, my parents processing this new reality. When they left, my father hugged me tightly. I'm proud of you, Eliana, he whispered. Connor would be too. My mother hugged me as well, but her eyes were sad, already mourning the idealized family dynamic she'd always pretended we had. Veronica was the last to leave. At the door, she hesitated. I really am sorry, she said again. Not just for the will and the lies, but for everything. For years of competition and jealousy. For not being the sister you deserved. I know, I replied, and I hope therapy helps you understand why you made these choices. Noah deserves a mother who's emotionally healthy and honest. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? She asked. I considered the question carefully. I don't know, I answered truthfully. But I'm willing to see where this path takes us, for Noah's sake, and maybe someday for ours too. 6 months passed before I could see the situation with any clarity. The trust fund for Noah was established, already helping with his ongoing medical needs. His heart condition, while requiring monitoring, responded well to treatment. He was growing into a cheerful, curious toddler, with Connor's expressive eyes, an observation that no longer stung. Veronica had surprised everyone by truly embracing the agreement conditions. Therapy helped her recognize patterns stemming from childhood. The constant need to compete with me, the self-sabotage characterizing many of her decisions. She found steady employment as an office manager at a dental practice, a job providing stability and benefits. Our relationship remained formal but cordial. I saw Noah regularly, taking him to the Woodland Park Zoo or the Pacific Science Center. Veronica and I didn't pretend to be close, but we'd found a way to coexist peacefully for Noah's sake. My parents struggled initially with the new boundaries. My mother especially found it difficult accepting that her daughters wouldn't have the close relationship she'd always envisioned. But over time, they adjusted, learning to support Veronica without enabling her dependency. Still watching? Good, because the real transformation hasn't happened yet. If you're invested in seeing how this story truly ends, drop a comment about whether you think I handled this right. Your engagement helps me bring more real stories like this to light. As for me, the grief support group I'd joined shortly after Connor's death became a lifeline. 12 strangers bound by loss had become friends, understanding each other in ways well-meaning family couldn't. We met weekly at a community center in Fremont, sharing our journeys through grief. 3 months after confronting Veronica, I established the Connor Morrison Foundation for Legal Education, providing scholarships to students from underprivileged backgrounds interested in corporate law. Watching Connor's legacy continue in careers of young, idealistic lawyers gave me purpose I hadn't expected to find. Connor's law partners checked in regularly, inviting me to dinners and events, ensuring I wasn't isolated in grief. My college roommate Tricia flew in from Denver monthly just to spend weekends watching movies and ordering Thai food. And then there was Jackson. I met him at a foundation fundraiser 8 months after Connor died. He was an ethics professor at University of Washington, thoughtful and kind, with quiet humor that reminded me of Connor in some ways. We started as friends, sharing coffee after foundation meetings. Gradually, we transitioned to occasional dinners. It was different than what I'd had with Connor, as it should be. Jackson understood that Connor would always be part of my life. That loving again didn't mean replacing what came before. We were taking things slowly, both of us cautious, but hopeful. 1 year after Connor's death, I stood in our garden watching spring bulbs push through soil. The tulips Connor had planted the previous fall were blooming, brilliant reds and yellows against newly green lawn. Bittersweet ache filled me seeing them, knowing he'd put them in the ground, hoping to see them bloom. So much had changed in that year. My phone buzzed. A text from Raymond Foster. "Can you come by the office today? Something you should see." I arrived an hour later. Raymond's expression was serious as he gestured for me to sit. "One of Connor's former colleagues reached out," he said. "He was going through old files and found something Connor had prepared but never formally filed. I thought you should have it." He slid a sealed envelope across his desk. My name was written on it in Connor's handwriting, but it was different from the letter I'd found in the safety deposit box. This one was dated 3 days before his death. With trembling fingers, I opened it. "Eliana, if Raymond is giving you this, something has happened to me unexpectedly. I've been having these headaches lately. Probably nothing, but they make me think about mortality in ways I haven't before. I want you to know that our life together was everything I could have hoped for. The fertility struggles, Veronica's betrayals, all the challenges we faced, none of it diminished what we built together. You are the strongest, most compassionate person I've ever known. If Veronica tries something after I'm gone, and my gut says she might, remember that documentation in the safety deposit box. But also remember this. She's still your sister, and Noah is still our nephew. Whatever she does out of desperation doesn't erase the fact that she's family, broken as that family might be. I know you'll handle whatever comes with grace and wisdom. You always do. If enough time has passed and you've found someone new, please don't feel guilty. I want you to be happy, to be loved, to build a new life. You deserve all the joy in the world. I love you beyond measure. Thank you for 11 extraordinary years. Forever yours." Connor. Tears streamed down my face as I read, but they weren't only grief tears anymore. They were gratitude tears. Connor had known something might happen. He'd prepared me not just legally, but emotionally for what came after. "There's something else," Raymond said gently, producing another document. Connor had drafted a codicil to his will, never finalized, but it shows his intentions. He wanted to establish a trust for Noah's medical care if anything happened to him. not because Noah was his son, but because Noah was his nephew, and he knew Brett was unreliable. I stared at the document, this final piece of Connor's character revealed. Even knowing Veronica had betrayed him, he'd still wanted to provide for Noah. He really was one of the good ones, Raymond said quietly. I nodded, unable to speak. That evening, I called Veronica. We'd maintained distance since the family dinner, our interactions limited to Noah's care. Can you come by tomorrow? I asked. There's something I need to show you. The next afternoon, Veronica sat in my living room while I shared Connor's letter and the draft codicil. She read them both in silence, tears rolling down her cheeks. He was going to help Noah anyway, she whispered, even after everything I did to him. That's who Connor was, I said. He saw past the hurt to what mattered, that Noah was an innocent child who needed support. I don't understand, Veronica said, looking up at me. Why are you showing me this? To make me feel worse about what I did? No, I replied. To show you that forgiveness is possible, even when someone has hurt you deeply. Connor forgave you before he died. I'm working on forgiving you now. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean there aren't consequences. I know, she said quietly. The therapy is helping me understand that. How are you doing? I asked. Really doing? She took a deep breath. Better. The job is stable. I'm managing my money better with the financial counseling. Noah's healthy, and I'm learning to be alone without panicking, without making impulsive decisions out of fear. I'm glad, I said, and meant it. Can I ask you something? Veronica said hesitantly. Do you think we'll ever be sisters again? Really sisters, not just cordial strangers? I considered the question carefully. I don't know, I answered honestly. What you did caused deep damage, but I've learned that healing isn't linear. Maybe someday. For now, we're doing the best we can for Noah, and that's enough. Veronica nodded, accepting this. As she left, she paused at the door. Thank you for showing me Connor's letter, she said. It helps to know he didn't die hating me. He never hated you, I replied. He was disappointed and wary, but he never hated you. Neither do I. 18 months after Connor's death, I returned to the Puget Sound waterfront where he'd proposed. The ferry crossing where we'd married glided past, its horn echoing across the water. Jackson stood beside me, his hand loosely holding mine. We'd been together for 6 months now, officially, though it felt both longer and shorter than that. You okay? He asked gently. Yeah, I said, and meant it. I think I am. I'd brought Connor's ashes here, finally ready to scatter them in the water he'd loved. Raymond, my parents, even Veronica with Noah on her hip, stood in a small semicircle behind us. Connor Morrison was my husband for 11 years. I began, my voice carrying across the quiet space. He was brilliant, kind, and thoughtful. He prepared me for life without him in ways I didn't understand until I needed them most. I looked at Veronica, who was crying quietly. Connor taught me that love means protecting the people you care about, even when they're not there to protect themselves. He taught me that documentation isn't paranoia, it's care. And he taught me that forgiveness is possible, even when betrayal cuts deepest. I opened the urn and began scattering the ashes over the water, watching them drift on the current toward the open sound. He also taught me that life continues after loss, that building something new doesn't dishonor what came before. So Connor, wherever you are, know that I took everything you taught me and used it to survive what came after. The ashes dispersed, becoming one with the water. Jackson's hand tightened around mine. Afterward, we gathered at my house. The Victorian Connor and I had renovated together. It was bittersweet seeing everyone there, but it felt right. Veronica approached me hesitantly as I stood in the garden. Thank you for including us today, she said, for letting Noah be part of this. He should know who Connor was, I replied. Not the lies you told, but the real man. The one who wanted to help him even after everything. I'm still in therapy, Veronica offered. Learning why I needed to compete with you so badly, why I made such destructive choices. I know, I said. I get the updates as part of our agreement. Right. She looked uncomfortable. Sometimes I forget this is all contractual. It has to be, I said, not unkindly. Trust takes time to rebuild. Maybe someday we won't need contracts and conditions, but that day isn't today. She nodded, accepting this. How are you doing? With him? She glanced at Jackson through the window. Good, I said. Different than with Connor, but good. He knows he's not a replacement. He's something new. Connor would be happy for you, Veronica said. He really loved you, you know. Even I could see that, despite my jealousy. I know, I replied softly. Noah toddled over, grabbing my leg with chubby hands. I picked him up, tickling his stomach until he giggled. He adores you, Veronica observed. I adore him, I said. He's innocent in all this. He deserves the best chance at life, regardless of what his mother did. Veronica flinched at the directness, but didn't argue. My parents approached, my father's arm around my mother's shoulders. Beautiful ceremony, he said. Connor would have appreciated it. Thank you both for coming, I replied. My mother hesitated, then spoke. I've been thinking a lot about what you said at that family dinner. About enabling Veronica, about not protecting you when I should have. I waited, not making it easier for her. You were right, she continued, the admission clearly difficult. We did fail you in that way. We were so focused on trying to fix Veronica's problems that we didn't see how it was harming both of you. I'm glad you can see that now, I said carefully. Can we do better? She asked. Moving forward? I hope so, I replied. But it means respecting the boundaries I've set. No more pressuring me to just forgive and forget. No more making excuses for behavior that's inexcusable. We understand, my father said firmly. Or we're learning to. That evening, after everyone left, Jackson and I sat on the porch swing Connor and I had installed years ago. That was intense, Jackson observed. Welcome to my family, I said wryly. Do you think Veronica will ever really change? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. But I've learned that's not my responsibility. I can provide support structures, establish boundaries, protect Noah. But Veronica's growth is up to her. That's very healthy of you, Jackson said, kissing my temple. Connor's last gift, I replied, teaching me that protection and compassion can coexist, that I can help without being victimized. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in oranges and purples, the same colors from that watercolor painting that brought Connor and me together all those years ago. So what did I learn from all of this? Family betrayal cuts deeper than any other kind because it exploits the trust we're conditioned to give automatically. But blood relation doesn't justify abuse, and protecting yourself isn't betraying family values, it's honoring the truth. Documentation saved me. Connor's foresight in preparing evidence wasn't paranoia, it was love, manifested as protection. When someone you trust behaves inappropriately, document it. When someone makes threats, record them. When someone shows you who they are, believe them and prepare accordingly. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I'm working toward forgiving Veronica, but that doesn't mean our relationship will ever return to what it was. Forgiveness is for me, for releasing the poison of rage. Reconciliation requires her to become someone trustworthy, and that's a process that takes years, if it happens at all. Most importantly, I learned that survival requires both compassion and boundaries. I could help Noah without rewarding Veronica's fraud. I could maintain family connections without tolerating abuse. These things aren't contradictory. They're necessary together. Connor's death taught me about grief. Veronica's betrayal taught me about boundaries. Together, They taught me that I'm stronger than I knew, that love continues even after death, and that sometimes the people who hurt us most need help we're under no obligation to provide, but can choose to offer anyway on our terms. 3 years after Connor's death, the Connor Morrison Foundation has provided scholarships to 47 students. Noah is a healthy 4-year-old who knows Uncle Connor through stories and photos. Veronica has maintained steady employment and completed therapy, though our relationship remains cautiously distant. Jackson and I married last spring in a quiet ceremony on the same ferry crossing where Connor and I exchanged vows. It felt right, honoring the past while building the future. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, I sit in the garden Connor planted and feel his presence in the blooming flowers, in the choices I make, in the strength I found when I needed it most. He's gone, but his love remains, and that, ultimately, is what carried me through the darkest betrayal, into the light on the other side. If you've made it this far, you've witnessed a story about betrayal, boundaries, and survival. If this resonated with you, hit that like button one more time and subscribe to Formidable Revenge channel. Drop a comment sharing your own experiences with family betrayal, or just let me know what you thought of how I handled mine. Your stories matter. Your strength matters. And remember, healing is never linear, but it's always possible. I'm Eliana, and this was my story of how my sister tried to steal my life, and how my dead husband's love protected me anyway.